campaign contributors on that. So, a couple other things. GARA gave, and we talked about this in our January 20th report, which we do have excerpts, or we actually have the body of that attached to our new work in there for you. GARA gave them a perfect score of 300 for managerial expertise. We have a full litany of all of the wrongs of the Downs operation. Anything from just coming off 1-year probation by the State Racing Commission because they refused to pay purses to the horse owners. It was a pretty significant thing, and you'll see some quotes in there from that. They had as many as 14 settlement agreements, including one in April of 2011 with the State Gaming Commission for violations of the rules. This is not a company that deserved. We all know about the big heap of manure out back that the U.S. government has told them they have to move, which they hadn't moved for years. We know also that the horsemen specifically asked the state fair not to give the contract to the Downs because, in their words, they had driven the existing facility into the ground. This is not somebody who gets managerial expertise perfect score of 300. And by the way, I'm going to go on record, I do not believe that either Garcia or Hennessy, the other two evaluators, were involved in this process. Based upon the information I've seen, I believe this is all Mr. GARA. I think Mr. GARA did the math and figured out what he had to do in order to get the Downs to win, and they won by only 15 points out of 1,000. So they needed that little help, and it's laughable that anybody could consider giving a perfect score to the Downs. As a matter of fact, I believe that Mr. Garcia gave their management score somewhere around 200 points, maybe lower than that. Okay, so anyway, a few more things to talk about. Buster Goff. By the way, the Senate used our information when they held the hearings for the confirmation at the State Fair, and both in the Senate Rules Committee and then again out on the Senate floor. There's something they did not know, and we did not know at the time because it was never publicly disclosed and was in fact concealed. Buster Goff, the man who switched his vote from no to yes, that gave the Downs the contract. Remember, they came, and I think it was on in November, earlier in the year, I don't have the date, it's in the report, where they polled the commissioners and it was 4-3 against the contract. It was going to tank. They withdrew the vote. They gave Buster Goff the ability to change the contract. Nobody else got that ability to do that. But it turns out Buster Goff's daughter-in-law and business partner is Andrea Goff. Andrea Goff is the head fundraiser for Susana PAC. Susana PAC paid her over $29,000 from May to September to raise money for Susana's personal PAC. They did not disclose this connection, and by the way, it wasn't a fluke. Andrea Goff ran Susana Martinez's inaugural events. She was the inaugural chair. Buster was hardly independent, and again, going back to what Republicans Charlotte Roddy and Tom Tinnen said, Martinez had this predetermined from the get-go. She had the ability to influence this through her different people. There was no way Laguna stood a chance, or if any other bid came in. Now, a couple more things just on the legal side of things. Matter of fact, two things. We talked about one of them, which is that Sunray Gaming's, we do not believe that campaign contribution was disclosed, and that was the most recent thing. Now, it could be those missing minutes on the Nixon tape. They may resurface suddenly, but they were supposed to have given us everything that they were not claiming was proprietary. The other thing is, after the RFPs were submitted, but before Mr. GARA and company did their evaluation, Mr. Windham and Governor Martinez spent some time together. There was nobody from Laguna with them. They were together for an hour. People observed them whispering, hushed, but basically you had a bidder with unfettered access to the decision maker for an hour after the bids were submitted, but before the evaluation was done. Now, maybe there isn't a specific wording in any specific law, but let's face it, she's claimed that she is ethics in government, and that is about as far from ethics as can be. And that should not be communication like that. It's clearly inappropriate. So, last couple of things. As you notice, I talked a lot about Susana PAC here. Okay, Jay McCleskey has a very long-running relationship with Pat Rogers. Pat Rogers was the lawyer and lobbyist for the Downs, and of course helped to negotiate the contract, and began representing the Downs at the legislature in February, long before they had a deal. McCleskey was personally asked by the National Republicans, and you guys will find the email in there, to intercede with Pat Rogers after Pat Rogers said he did not want to replace David Iglesias after Rogers, McCleskey, the National Republicans removed U.S. Attorney David Iglesias. The National Republicans knew McCleskey was close enough to Rogers that he was their last chance to try to convince Rogers to take that position. Rogers and McCleskey and Darren White were also very actively involved in a lawsuit, and most of us have probably forgotten this, but it's very timely now. They sued over driver's licenses to illegal immigrants in New Mexico in an attempt to get the addresses of the illegal immigrants to try to prove voter fraud. Okay, so these guys go way, way back. So we've got Darren White brought in here for no reason other than his name, because they won't give us his security proposal, by the way. They say it's proprietary, and Darren White is not a security guy. He was a sheriff. He was a TV reporter like you guys. I don't think I see you guys lining up to give security proposals for the Downs. Anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I'm going to call out one last thing. Nate Gentry stood with Susana Martinez at that big press conference with their strong anti-corruption bill, and she made a big dog and pony show about signing that bill. Nate Gentry served as her political hitman and launched a retaliatory investigation against Charlotte Rohde. As I said, Charlotte was a Martinez appointment. She is a Republican, and if you ever meet her, one of the nicest, most straightforward, most honest people you will ever meet. Gentry basically implied that she had illegally distributed documents. He IPRA'd her emails, not just any government emails, but her private emails as well. Now, Charlotte wasn't afraid of this, but that's retaliation pure and simple. When everything is on the up and up, and as we can see, I am specifically saying there are violations of the law here, guys. I'm not mincing words here. They're here. To send somebody like Nate Gentry to attack Charlotte Rohde is just wrong. It's not what the public needs to see its dollars used as. We are asking of Gary King, New Mexico's Attorney General, because these do apply to state law, to overturn the contract. I don't believe yet that it has passed the appeal process, so I don't know what that means in terms of the appellate process. But I will say right now, we have formally hand-delivered a letter to Gary King with all of the attachments and reports, and specifically said we believe that this is clear-cut, that there are violations of the law, and that this contract needs to be dumped. All it takes is one thing, such as not disclosing the contribution, or one contribution during the prohibited time frame. We've got 3 contributions during a prohibited time frame, and we've got 1 undisclosed contribution as far as we can tell. That's more than enough grounds to dump this. On top of that, there should be a criminal investigation. Ms. Martinez has set herself up as the guardian of anti-corruption in this state. That's no way to get a free pass. She should hold herself as an example. And start with, by the way, anybody who has submitted IPRAs, they had promised to put all documents on this as soon as the contract was signed. They never put those documents up. I got a hold of the evaluation form. They tried to withhold it. They've tried to withhold as many documents as they can. We're limited. We don't have subpoena power. Those of you who have tried to get documents from them probably were given a 2-week letter and then kept telling you, oh, we need more time. They're not coming. They're not being forthcoming, and we need better than that. Okay, so any questions?
Do you think that 2006 law applies to PACs?
It does if it's, and I'll give you a great example of that. I think the U.S. Supreme Court has kind of determined that. Here's why. It says, first of all, it says political officials and their employees. It is Susana PAC. There is no 2 ways about it. Jay McCleskey is her employee. Beyond that, though, the Citizens United decision made a clear-cut distinction between independent expenditure groups like ISPAC, us, and direct PACs, those that support a specific candidate, that give money to specific candidates, that receive money for specific candidates. There is a strong chance of quid pro quo, pay-to-play corruption with a standard PAC like Susana PAC has, because it's specifically her PAC, whereas an independent expenditure, they ruled there was no quid pro quo potential because the PAC was not in a position to dole out favors. She is in a position to dole out favors. And when you read her letters from Susana PAC, she says, I started this PAC because. She can't walk away from that. She can't claim it's not her actions. It is her PAC. It is her. Jay McCleskey works for her. Andrea Goff works for her. This is all part of her deal.
You mentioned that Mr. Windham had 1 hour access to the governor and they were seen whispering. When was that and where?
That was right here at the State Fair during the junior auction. I forget the full term of it, but the junior livestock auction, when the kids come from all over New Mexico to auction off their prized possessions. And I do understand that Windham went ahead and bid on a bunch of them, but from what I've heard, he may not have paid for them. But basically, it was right here on the grounds that pertains specifically to this contract.
Are there any pictures of that?